Now we all heard the expression, you get what you pay for. Now in the case of this Yongnuo 50mm F1.8 lens, it's an understatement. What is up everyone, this is JPR Tech here, and today I'm gonna be doing a review of the Yongnuo, the Chinese replica of the Canon's 50mm F1.8 lens. Putting out the lens out of the box, I was surprised how light this is. This thing barely weighs like a couple of 100 grams and that's it. If super light, plastic everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if the screws are plastic too. That's how light this thing is. Now inside it does have 6 elements in 5 groups, as well as 7 aperture blades, which is actually very decent for such a cheap lens. The closest focusing distance is 0.45 millimeters, which is average for this Nifty 50. And also the 52mm filter diameter is great because you could find filters cheap anywhere. Now let's talk about performance and picture quality. Yeah, performance, I was shooting with my Sony a7 Mark II. I do have a Sigma MC-11 adapter that supports a lot of Canon lenses. And of course, I wasn't expecting Canon-like performance, but if it worked decently, then I'll be happy because this thing only ran me about $50 including shipping, and that's pretty good for a lens. So mounting it to my camera, right away I was let down. The focusing was just not only hunting, but it actually got tired of hunting. It just gave up from trying to focus, so I couldn't focus on anything. And if I did focus on something, as soon as I pressed the shutter to take the picture, it would move again right after I pressed the shutter. So all my photos were all blurred out. And I did notice that it really has a hard time focusing on objects that are close to the closest focusing distance. So if you're like about a half a millimeter away or even just a couple of inches away, it will not focus. It would only focus for things that are infinity or close to it. Of course, with Sony bodies, we do have peaking, so manual focus is an option, but that defeats the purpose of getting this lens because the focus throw is barely a quarter of a turn, which is not good with such a shallow depth of field. Now, speaking of the shallow depth of field, let's talk about the aperture, which was the biggest culprit and the biggest pain in this lens. Right away after mounting in the camera, it just showed that it was at f90. Yeah, you heard right, it was 90. I didn't know my camera was able to write that or display that in the screen, but it was obviously a glitch. And moving around, adjusting the aperture, it was just fluctuating in the 80s and 90s. So I knew something was wrong, and while taking the picture, I noticed that it was shooting wide open because it was super bright. And I was trying to shoot in aperture priority mode because I really wanted to test out the aperture, but it wasn't working at all. No matter what I did with the lens, what settings I did, for example, I tried phase detection, contrast detection, I shot in with the electronic shutter off and on in APS-C mode. No matter what camera settings and focusing mode I set in my camera, it was not working. And the only way to relieve the problem is to just turn off the camera and turn it back on. And even then, sometimes it wouldn't work. So between these two problems with the focusing and the aperture, it just made this lens completely unusable. And as you can see from the sample pictures, the few that I was able to take, because yeah, I couldn't take any pictures that were focused. It was just a terrible experience. And another thing I noticed is how soft this lens is. It could be because I was stuck at 1.8, but I did find some shots that seemed like it did close down to like f5.6, and even then the image is really soft. Really can't recommend this lens. It's just too much of a gamble to try to spend $50 on a Nifty 50 and then you really end up with something worse than a lemon. So I'm gonna send this back, and I'm just gonna do the other best option it is to save money but still have autofocus, and that is to get older Canon lenses. Now in a future video, I will be talking about the lens that I did get from Canon. Is the 28 to 105mm USM Macro lens. Just as a spoiler alert, it is awesome. I can't wait to show you guys the review of it working with my Sony a7 II and the Sigma MC-11. Now more on that on the future video. But thanks so much for sticking around for this rant. Really, I try to make it a review, but it turned out to be just a rant on the Yongnuo lens. But please, if you do do have a different experience, why don't you leave it down in the comments below. Tell me what body you guys use, what system, and yeah, what is your experience with these Chinese third-party lenses. Now I'm shooting again with the Sony and an adapter. That could be the reason why this lens is acting all crazy. So all you Sony mirrorless users out there, beware. Now if you do have a different experience, I really would appreciate your guys' comment and input down on the comments down below. And if you did like this video and you found it useful, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up. That helps me a lot. And also subscribe, hit that little bell next to it so you'll be notified when my future videos are coming out. Thanks again for watching. I'll be seeing you guys on the next one. Peace.